Welcome to the very first episode of Indie Book Nerds. Our imposter syndrome says that we're not authors,
But here's our books.
and here's our podcast.
We are your hosts, Morgan Christensen.
And Jade Nioma. So, why did we start Indie Book Nerds?
Spread the love of indie publishing and help other indies not feel so alone. Today, we are talking with Jade Nioma about her new debut novel, Fate's Tether, which comes out technically today, August 21st. Jade, what's going on with your personal life besides great new book?
Yeah, so my son started kindergarten. That has been definitely an adjustment to get used to. It was definitely hard at first watching him, go off and have a fun time at school, and luckily that's been going okay so far. I finished all of my book editing and have even started working on the first draft for book two, which is really exciting. And then I have also contacted a cover artist to do more covers for the rest of the series, as well as I have reached out to Hope Garrity, who has done a majority of the commissioned artwork for my book. I've reached out to her about commissioning one more piece of Vincenzo, just because I love my male love interest. He's everything to me. He's such a little sweetie pie, and I couldn't go without doing at least one more round of art. And then besides that, I've got Kickstarter books being sent out this week. So, and
Yay!
what about you, Morgan? What's going on in your life outside of directly the maiden's husband?
Oh, I mean, it's mostly that because that comes out next month. Hey. So I've got street team kind of organized and prizes are ordered. And then hopefully we can set up pre-orders to be ready by August 23rd. And then I'm been reading Fate's Tether, which is why I'm interviewing you. And then um, I've also been reading book two for you and doing beta reads and stuff. So it's super exciting.
Yeah, you're kind of doing the chapter by chapter thing right now on book two, and and then I'm also reading. I'm beta reading your second book, so we're kind of just doing a little swap right now.
It's just a little swap, just the general beta reading shtick. What is your writing journey, Jade? Just like what made you a writer in general? What brought you to where you are now?
Yeah, so I didn't always know that I wanted to be an author when I was a kid. I was really into Twilight and all those books at that time. And that's when I first started getting kind of the idea of writing a book. And I would write in these little Twilight journals about my dreams of one day being an author. And I would write chapter one, and I would put a little outline, and I would name the book, but I would never actually write anything inside the journals or anything like that. But I pursued at first medical school. That was kind of like the big thing that I was going for, and then I pivoted towards psychology. I do have a bachelor's in psychology, and it was when I was getting everything prepared and ready to go with my master's program to get my master's in social work. Everything fell apart all at once. I had a job ready to go. I had internships ready to go, and I was ready to start school. And then just some personal life things happened, and I wasn't able to like follow through with going to school. But instead of being sad and depressed and upset about it, even though I was, my husband was like, why don't we buy you that writing program that you've been talking about? And I was like, well, I don't know. What if I never use it? And he's like, you know what? Just go ahead. It's like $60. We'll buy it and we'll see what happens. And then I felt immensely guilty that he had purchased me the program, not because it was, very expensive or anything like that, but primarily just because I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know if I want to be a writer. I don't even know if I can be a writer. And he's already bought me like a whole program meant to be written in. And so then I started, I think it was August of last year, with a book that I have completely abandoned. I have just like, I wrote 30,000 words into it and then have not touched it since or even looked at it. But once I gave up on that one, I decided to try again because I knew that NaNoWriMo was coming up. So the month before November, I was sitting there plotting out my book the best that I could, not having ever plotted a book before or knowing anything about the process. I was like, I know what I'm doing. I didn't, and I did not use much of the original outline. It went completely different direction as well, but it was there. And during Nano, I did 75,000 words during the month of November, and then it was I think 115 by the time I finished, and now it's like 136,000 words. So
That's amazing. And it was really cool to see you during NaNoWriMo because I don't do NaNoWriMo anymore. That's just a lot of words. And I know the incredible feat that it is. So you did an amazing job, like writing a novel in a month. That's super incredible, Jade. You should be totally proud of yourself.
yeah,
Um,
I think the hardest part was that now I feel like a sense of pressure to keep up that writing speed. So with book two, it's going like much, much slower. And so far, I've been working on it. I think the past 3 months, I've gotten 10,000 words each month, which is a far cry from 75,000 in a month. But that's another thing that I've kind of been like trying to navigate is fitting writing into my schedule in a way that isn't putting absolutely everything on the table all at once, giving it everything you have every single day. That was good for like a first try to get it done. But now I think I have to dial it back a little bit and get myself into something that is a routine that doesn't disrupt my whole life because I'm trying
yeah,
to, maximize my word count.
yeah, yeah, I know. I mean, yeah, that writing in a whole novel with that amount of words in a month is superhuman. So to yeah, it's not the standard expectation.
Yeah,
But
definitely not.
10,000 in a month, that's awesome too. Well, just to pivot over to Fate's Tether itself. Oh, what inspired your book, Fate's Tether?
Yeah, so I have my own history of being in a abusive relationship. That went on for 6 years until I left just before my son turned 1 years old. I actually left January 1st, 2020, as the day that I moved out and left for good. Um, and since then, it was a lot of difficulty. Obviously, the hardest time for women is often the first 18 months after they leave an abusive relationship. That is when it is the most dangerous, but also when it is the biggest trying to adapt period of trying to like reacclimate to life and figure out how things work now, as well as like trying to keep yourself like away from your abuser and all those types of things. So because I left in 2020, I obviously didn't write the book until 2023, and that I knew that I wanted to talk about the way that I felt and the way that like I was going through it, but I didn't know how, because oftentimes when you describe the things that you've been through with a relationship, you will often find people who are like, oh, it was just a toxic relationship, or like, oh, everybody has bad days. I have a sibling who currently still doesn't think my ex is that bad of a guy, just because they had a couple beers together. So that's it is what it is. But because of that, when it came time to write a story, there was no other story I wanted to tell other than my own, I guess. And it wasn't for the sake of like having people listen to me. It was more of like, can you understand me? Like, can you understand like what I've been through, what it looked like for me on the daily, like how it felt to be immersed in that situation. And then I love fantasy. So to me, there was like nothing better than to combine everything that I had been through with so many elements of fantasy that I loved reading books growing up. And I think a lot of people will see that in Fate's Tether, that there is a plethora of fantasy themes. It's got a little bit of everything. And that to me was it was all like an act of love in all honesty. Like the book start to finish was an act of love towards myself, and also to show other women that there is life after abuse, you know what I mean? And because leaving is such like a hard and a scary time, and it's not going to be easy right when you leave, like I don't want to convince women like, oh, just leave tomorrow and everything will work out for you, because that's not the truth. But what I wanted to show is that even if you struggle, even if it's hard, you can live a life that is worthwhile still afterwards, after abuse. And so even though it will be hard, and even though you won't know what's happening and you will come across many hardships, there is a life that's worth living afterwards. And then I wanted to talk about the world itself of Fate's Tether. So I have these sky islands. They're called the Area Archipelago. So they are three skybound islands. They are miles and miles above the surface of the planet Halos, and that is where all the angels and immortals live. The immortals are called Ambrosi, and the angels are called Rani Guardians. And to me, the inspiration from this obviously came from Tears of the Kingdom, because there are sky islands in that Zelda game, and they call them the archipelagos and stuff like that. But to me, the reason that I took that inspiration and I put it into my book is because Cosima herself is trapped, by her evil husband Aurelio. He's had her trapped for 50 years in this sky island, and she dreams of the world beneath her. And to me, that was like a direct correlation of how it feels. Like, you feel so isolated. You feel like you're in a palace in the sky, miles and miles and miles away from everybody, and there's no way to leave, or there's no way to get out of here. And it seems like impossible. What are you supposed to do? Just fall from the sky? You know what I mean? And I think that that's where it came from, that inspiration. And the immortals and the angels in my book, the reason that they're in these archipelagos is they are supposed to be caring for all of the people in the world below them, all of the creations of the goddesses. And so that to me was also like, I think in some ways my own struggling with wishing that there was someone who could just like fix the problem for me, just hoping that there was someone bigger than you who knew what they were doing, whose job it was to do things like this, could like just fix things for you. And I think that's where the inspiration for them came from. And then I have a lot of zombie beasts in the book, and that's inspired by The Last of Us, which is a game that my brother and I played together, like start to finish. And I loved how cinematic the game was. I loved how scary the fungus beasts were. I love that it absolutely petrified me to play that game. And so there were times where I'd have to have my brother play it because I was too scared to do it myself. So when I was thinking of what could be scary in a book, to me, it was just fungus beasts. And then also, I have like a really weird love of mushrooms. I don't know. I don't know if you share that like weird attachment to mushrooms, but I learned that trees communicate through mushrooms, and yeah, it's really cool.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so that was another thing. I think even the mushrooms in my book, it's mentioned that the Fae use them to communicate, and that's why the Fae know so much about mushrooms, and that's like inspired by real life mushroom communication chains in nature.
Oh, there is an appreciation for mushrooms around here. Our front mat is like little mushroom guys. So, do I like mushrooms? Just a little bit. But, yeah, no, that's all really cool. And to like go on the line of like the Guardians, hoping that somebody would be there. I mean, Cosima does have, like a friend guardian in Yadira. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
But the others are also like her, I would say others were also pretty cruel to her. So I wonder if it's also like a wishing for, somebody to save you, but also not receiving that or even being attacked. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know if I'm diving
absolutely.
too deep.
No, I absolutely agree. There's a lot of like, I mean, a lot of my own existential dread has made its way into that book. I don't think you can read it without coming across some of my like existential lamenting and spirals like that. And so I think angels just in general represent a lot of like that inner struggle, like the idea of like this magical being that is sent from the heavens to protect you. But what happens if they don't is another like
Mhm.
aspect.
For sure. That's, but it's all very cool. And the arc that Cosima goes through is like it's all evident of, your struggles and your strength in that entire the message you wanted to get across is just perfection. And
Thank you.
it's so cool to read. Um, let's see. I mean, pivoting right into like the deep, because I love that deep stuff with the world building. I could just pick you apart forever. But what kind of music do you listen to when you write, or maybe particularly what kind of music do you listen to for Fate's Tether?
Yeah, so it's funny because I listen to a lot of techno and trance and EDM. Um, I I don't know why specifically. Maybe it's because there's not a lot of talking, but sometimes there is. Sometimes there's like a lot of lyrics and stuff. So I don't know really what it is. There's just something about like the upbeat like nature to it, and the way that there's a lot of songs too that I feel like are very immersive. Like it's another thing for me. It's like when I'm writing, I have to be in my zone. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I don't know
Yes.
if you're like that, if you have to be like very
Yes.
specific. Yeah, and so I'm kind of the same way where it's like I need music that gets me in a completely different mood than like day to day stuff. And I think that's why maybe techno and trance and all that kind of stuff really gets me, is because it's like what you would hear at a rave or something like that. Um, and so it's not what's on the radio. It's not like the most popular songs, and that's really what gets me. And then I think just in general, like my writing practice involves like a lot of brain dumping. So I journal a lot first, and then that writing gets me like in the mood to start actually writing. And then I put my headphones on and I pretend no one else in the house exists and just listen to my music, I guess.
Awesome. Yes, I do know so much about the mood. I've had to kind of stop writing because I'm either not in the mood, the music's not going, or there's like other distractions around me that I'm just like, I can't do it right now. So,
Yeah, I totally
but
feel that.
also, does that mean like the badass fighting scenes can be paired with rave and techno music as you read these like really gritty fighting scenes, and then it's like just
It's funny. I feel like I should make a playlist of just the songs that I've listened to, because I wonder what people would think if it makes sense at all. I guess that's what I'm wondering. Like I wonder if people would listen to it and they're like, I get it, or if people would be like, what the heck? She was listening to this the whole time.
like this doesn't go with anything. This isn't. But like if it inspires you, I'm sorry, my cats are fighting. If it inspires you, I mean, go off. I also do feel that thing where it's like it has to be music that isn't just like your day to day. It has to be something that just kind of sets you into the mood. Just kind of, again, you zone out from the rest of the world.
I
Um,
feel like authors are almost like Olympic athletes in the sense that we have a lot of really strange traditions and rituals and routines that we go through. Like it almost feels like we're like, yeah, I'm going for gold. And then really it's just like I'm writing a smut scene today. Like I just
yeah,
really need to have my head on straight if I'm gonna do that. And I think that's what's so funny about authors, it's just in general. It's like we're like, well, if I don't have my specific tea brand, and if I don't have this candle that has this scent and my fluffy blanket, like I can't. Would you want me to write there? You're not gonna get anything out of me.
nothing, not a thing. Oh my gosh, yes. And it's also a thing where people are like, well, how do you start writing? Like, how do you get to write? How do you write so much? It's like there's no right or wrong way. You go to the coffee shop, you sit on your bed, you do whatever. Again, the right candle, the right lighting, the right blankie, the right everything, the right coffee, the right tea. Yes, there's no right or wrong way of doing it. I mean, yeah, I don't think there's anything you could do wrong. Um, in Fate's Tether, who is your favorite character and why?
Yeah. So my female main character Cosima is absolutely my favorite character, just because she is incredibly resilient. I think from start to finish, she even, she has moments where she admits like I've given up just because it's easier. I try to make my day-to-day life easier, just trying to survive my circumstances. And when presented with the opportunity to like make some actual like big change for herself, she does. And I really, really love that about her. And I love that she will have her moments where she has a complete meltdown and she's, panicking and crying. And then she'll go, okay, and she'll just do it and she'll keep going. And like there's a moment in the book, I'm sure you remember, where she encounters a fungus beast herself for the first time, has quite the tussle, and then immediately after vomits. And I just love her for her like very honest reactions. Like I didn't want
Mhm.
someone who was just like and yeah, and now I just killed a fungus beast and I am the greatest in the whole wide world. I wanted her to be like, holy crap, what did I just do?
Yes.
And then
Have,
oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Oh. And then I was also going to say that I have two side characters that are also big loves of mine. One of them is Ostrom von Toadsage. He is a interdimensional wizard who runs Wizard Fight Club. If that sounds interesting to you, buy my book because Wizard Fight Club is definitely in there. And then Doc Santoro. Doc is, it's not fully revealed in the book where he comes from or like who he is, but at the very base of it, you don't see him necessarily using any magic or doing anything that he shouldn't be doing. He kind of acts like a normal human being. He's just really interested in research and studying things. And you hear from Vincenzo in the book that Doc Santoro got trapped here on this planet, and it's because he had spent so much of his time like studying the different universes and stuff. And he may or may not be making a reoccurrence in book 2, but he's just definitely another one of my favorite characters, just because he's so enigmatic, I think, in my opinion. At least that's how I was hoping that he would come off, just a little bit like distant. You don't know too much about him personally or even like why he does the things that he does. He's just there, and I'm going to exploit that.
He's there and he's doing the things and helping the characters a little bit.
But
Yes,
why is he
and
doing that? And why is he here?
perhaps it will be revealed later, and I must keep reading because you must.
Well, I haven't written
Um,
that part yet. I have it up here, but it's not on page yet.
well, um, I wanted to talk about Kasima. Oh, because there was like a video because going on about her actually having feelings. Because there was like a video where somebody commented on having so many FMCs that are just tough, rigid badasses and keeping it in, just like, all the like the male main characters that are also victims of the patriarchy and must like just keep it all in and bottle it up because I'm a badass. Like it is nice to see um Kasima cry and just have her moments. And again, you say like she, has her moment and then she's like, okay, now I can do the thing.
Yeah, and you know what? I just don't see why that is not um more common, because like
Yeah.
again, I know that we want to look at heroes and like, you want your hero to be a hero. You want him to be a brave guy who goes in and slays the dragon and saves the whole village, and that's what you want out of a hero. But I also think, why can't a hero also be someone who's scared completely the entire time and has no idea how they're going to get it done? But what's brave about them is that without knowing how to get it done and while being very scared, they try and succeed anyway. I have a quote in my book during one of the like part interlude poem things. I don't really know what to call those things, but it's, for part 3, I think it is. It says that fortune favors shaky hands as much as steady ones, and that to me was like very much an ode to be scared and do it anyway.
Exactly. Yes. All 100% to everything you just said. Um, so of all the characters in Fate's Tether, who would you rather kiss, marry, and kill? And I might ask for another spin-off of this because someone also told me you can't use all of the characters. You have to pick 3, and then and then she can, like Jade would pick out of the 3 who would she kiss, marry, kill. But I can't make a mother choose between her children. So, of all the characters, we'll start with that. Who would you kiss, marry, and kill?
Okay. Kiss would be Calyx. Calyx in the book is a super fiery redhead badass woman who uses a very big staff with like metal tips at the end to absolutely whop all of her enemies. And she even tries to get a good one in at Aurelio. So she's definitely my kiss because she's like, oh my God, Calyx, you're like so badass. Stop. And then Mary Vincenzo, obviously, he's like a heartthrob, is he not? I mean, that's why I wrote him that
Yes.
way.
Oh my god, yes. I would also like to marry and kiss Vincenzo.
Yeah,
So,
he's a little baby. And you know what? And he would take such good care of us too. He'd be like, "Let me get you
yes,
flowers."
all of us. Oh, you need more men like him in our lives, fictional ones.
And then kill obviously Aurelio. We want nothing to do with that guy. I mean,
Yeah.
that guy sucks.
Um, what was like your favorite scene or like even dialogue to write in Fate's Tether?
Ooh. Do you know I had a pre-planned answer for this, but the moment that you asked it to me, a different answer came. Okay. So, my first favorite scene, I was gonna say, is when she's escaping Aurelio and she's escaping the palace. That scene originally in the first draft was very different. It still had the same bones, I would say. It was about the same plot happened, but the way it happened changed a lot. And I love it now. So in like if we're talking about like final finished project, I would say that her escaping is probably one of my favorite scenes to think about because it shows like her being scared and she's so scared. And I was lucky enough to have two friends of mine, KJ and Zach R, I believe, and they are both very talented voice actors, and they narrated that scene for me. And the emotion that KJ showed when she was doing Cosima telling him like I was never strong enough for the things that you put me through, but I had to be. I had to learn how to survive you. That was like so powerful. And then I don't want to spoil too much, but then she gets away. And it's such a, like a beautiful moment. But the other scene that I was thinking about that was my favorite to write, especially dialogue, was just, I think, like one or two chapters before that scene where she's with Aurelio in the office and he was like, "What was area before me?" And she's like, "What?" And he was like, "What was area before me?" And it's just, it was so, like, I just like Aurelio being very unhinged. I'm actually,
Hmm.
I, before I wrote Fate's Tether, I told you that I was working on another book. In that book, there is like an evil queen, and I basically wasn't even really writing the book. Some of the times, I was just writing scenes with the queen just being evil, like something that you would like maybe shove in somewhere at like the end of a chapter to fluffen it up a little bit, or like, oh, like, whoa, let's check on the queen, what's she doing? And it's just like it's just these little throwaways, but I couldn't stop writing them, and I would read them to my husband. He's like, these are really good. You're like really good at writing villains. And so I think there's like this like unhinged nature to villains that I just really like writing.
I love deliciously evil villains. It's probably so bad on our psyche, but it's just it's so good and so much fun to write. Yes, and voice actors and narrators are just amazing. I also listened to that snippet of narration, and yes, the emotion was like top tier. It's something about audiobooks that just really take you in and like it's like a different experience than reading the book. And also, was it his name was Zach that
Yeah.
voiced Aurelio? Like the way my eyes were like, and I was like, oh, like oh my god, that is like him in my head. Like that's it's just terrifying too because
The
men are
laugh.
scary.
Do you
Yes.
remember the
Oh God.
laugh?
Yes. Oh. Well, it's just even like the first line of like it was just like one sentence because he's like kind of just coming up to her and stuff, and it was terrifying. Just even like his like just kind of dragging like I can't I can't. So
Yeah, he did such a
amazing.
great job on it. I know that if I am able to get an audiobook, fingers crossed that one day I can get to that point. I would definitely love the idea of having male and female voice actors just because it was so dynamic. It was so like
Yeah.
there was so many layers to it just because there was two people and it felt like they
Hmm.
were like interacting in person, not like recording
Yeah.
at home and doing their lines or whatever,
Yeah.
however they did it. It was just, I don't know. I was blown away by it. I
Yes.
would love to get an audiobook with two narrators. Ugh, my dream.
Yeah. Yes. And like one narrator is still good because especially if they can pull off the different vocal ranges and again pull it off. I feel like sometimes where there's a male narrator and there's a female part, it's like just a little too fluttery. I personally I just can't get into it. It's just me. But and then sometimes like I just prefer the female narrators just because it can get a little goofy when they go a little lower like the guys, but there's like a huskiness to it. I don't know. But yeah, narrators are amazing and fun and great. Let's see. What was the most difficult scene or dialogue to write in Fate's Tether?
Oh, the final. I wouldn't say maybe it's the final two chapters. I want to say, actually, I'm going to be bold and say like the final 8 chapters. Ending the book was very, very hard. Like I said, I originally finished the manuscript. It was 115,000. Then I took it to a dev editor who, I love you, RSK. You're amazing. You did what I needed you to do, but you tore my manuscript to shreds, which it needed. This is not a RSK issue. This was a skill issue on Jade's part, who needed to learn some things. Because we have to be humble. You can't come out of the gate expecting that your first book is going to be perfection. It was, again,
Absolutely.
my first book that I had ever done, and so it needed a lot of work. When I went back in and I did a lot of rewrites, I ended up adding another, like, I think 20,000 or 15,000 words, and so it came out to 136,000 words. And I was like, okay, now I have a really long book. And I was doing a lot of the rewrites and getting closer and closer to the end, and I hit a wall where I was like, I can't do it. I can't finish the book. I can't make the ending better. I don't know how to take it from here. I was like spiraling every single time I opened Scrivener, and I was like, okay, here we go. And I would just sit there and I would stare at it and I would go, but how? And I think it's because, and I don't want to like go too far into spoilers, but the final couple chapters are where things come to a head for Cosima. It's now or never. It's you either make a move and you push for what you want and you get total freedom, or you sit back and you let the entire cycle just continue from the beginning again. And that was such like a pivotal moment. I wanted to do it justice. I wanted to do it right. I wanted there to be enough lead into like different. It's so hard to talk about the end without spoiling things, but I wanted it to make sense for the ending of the story that she went through. I didn't want it to just be a typical fantasy ending. I didn't want to leave too many leads open either. I wanted it to feel like something was accomplished in this book instead of because my one of the things that I hate is when you're reading a really really good book and it feels like
Mm.
the ending is coming together and they pull one of those like last minute like grabs to get you to get the second book, but it's where they reveal something that genuinely changes everything, including the way you've interpreted the whole first book. And it's like, well, you led me toward this ending and then you changed it on me. And that almost feels like a betrayal sometimes. And when
Hmm.
it's done right, it's done right. But there have times
Right.
where I've read books and I was like, this was not done right. And it's mostly because it feels like when you change everything, it's almost like, well, then what did we accomplish? Well, then what did we do all of this that we read for? And so to me, when I was crafting those last couple chapters, it had to be something has to be resolved. You have to feel like you're smiling because I know that you know what happens at the end. But it's just
Well,
something has to happen. Something has to wrap up. And I was having a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of imposter syndrome. So a lot of like, okay, I have to make it good. Can I make it good? Am I capable of making it good? And yeah, that's why I think that the final, I'm going to say the hardest were the last 2 chapters, because then after you have, you know, the big things that happen in the last couple chapters, then you have the final chapter, which is like an homage to like, well, let's look back, let's see what did we go through, what have we endured, where are we going to go now, like how are we wrapping up the story but still trying to lead people into the second book. And every time I did it, I was like, it's not good enough, it's not good enough, it doesn't wrap things up well enough. And so I probably rewrote that last chapter like 4 or 5 times. Like, and I'm talking like start to finish, not just changing some things. I mean, like being like, you know what? Delete. And let me try again. And then, but eventually I got with what I got with. And so, I'm going to leave it at that.
What you got with is amazing, and like you said, the now or never for Kasima is like that you can feel like that tensity because it's literally, I mean, again, not to spoil anything, but it's the tensity is there, and it is literally like we got to do it now, and so she has like no choice but to like if you don't, it's just not going to happen. Which you could feel as the reader. And that boss fight, I mean, it's amazing. So I think you did well. And then, you know, what are your plans for the future? We've already kind of talked a little bit about book two, but what are we looking at for the rest of your maybe writing career and Fate's Tether itself in the series?
Yeah, so I want to publish book two. I want to say in the first half of next year. I'd love to have it out by June, but like I said, the drafting process for book two has been very difficult, especially with the release coming out this month. Things have definitely slowed down. Um, but either way, I definitely want book two out in 2025, and then book three probably in 2026, which is going to be the final book of the series. I think. I think. I'm we'll see. It depends because in some ways I know where I want to take book three. I know what direction I want to go in. Um, but in some ways it could also not be the end. You know what I mean? You know how
Mm.
sometimes you just love something so much you don't want it to end? Yeah.
Yes.
And then as as for my publishing plans just for the future, um I have a couple other books that I've been brewing up in private. I've been not starting any outlines or any drafts or anything like that, but definitely in the brainstorming process, the brain dump process for a couple different projects, just because I don't want to lose them, even if I'm not working on them right now. But there's definitely this like weird pull lately to like work on something other than the Fates series. Like I don't know. We'll see where things end up.
Mhm. OMG. Sometimes you gotta listen to that poll and just, tap a tap on for a week on whatever other story, and then you'll be like, okay, that was good. Back to Fate's Tether and all the things. So sometimes it really helps those creative juices anyway to do what you wanted to do or what you planned on doing.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that. And my husband has also really been encouraging me to start working on another book as well because he's like, think about it. You can just jump back and forth between the two of them. And I think it's just he's
Oh,
heard
you.
enough of me complaining, enough of me being like, but I want to work on something else, but I feel like I shouldn't. And I really feel like I'm breaking the law if I were to work on something other than book two. Like it feels like someone's gonna come out of nowhere and they're like, what are you doing? No, you have to be working on book two. Delete this, delete this.
This is the author police.
Mm-hmm.
Open the door.
Open the door. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I promise I wasn't working on a different draft. And they're like, get on the ground, dirtbag.
No, I promise the author police will not come and get you. I've done it. I switch back and forth between book ideas because you can just get sick of the same, imaginary friends for after a while, and they get sick of you too because you're just trying to beat the crap out of them for more content and better emotional stuff. And so you're just like, I think I'm just gonna go play with these other ones for a while, and then I'll get back with you guys. And it's usually helped. So yeah.
Maybe I should try. Maybe I should just dig into it and see what happens if I
Yeah.
just. You know what? Why is starting a book like the hardest part? Like physically opening the document, creating the new document for the new book, and then first sentence, first paragraph. That feels like I don't know. That feels too hard.
Just know that it will change anyway. Yeah, it'll change anyway
That's what I
because
told
of
myself
edits.
with I
Yeah.
know that you saw book 2 and I know you've read the first chapter. And when I was trying to sit down and write, I was like, I can't do this. I don't know how to start a book. Like, where do I start from? And then there's always people who are like, well, what do you want to write? You don't have to write in chronological. You're lying to me. Yes, I do have to write in chronological. Do you know what it'll do to me internally if I were to write out of chronological order?
I also have to write in chronological order. You just put down some because you are also writing or writing. You're writing my book too. You're also reading my book too. Know that that very first prologue is not what it was on the first draft, or even the rewrite draft, because this was all rewritten prior. So just know that it changes anyway. Because I feel like that's the usual running thing is that your first chapter or your prologue or whatever, usually by the time you get to the end of the book, you're like, okay, I actually need it to begin like this. And then you rewrite that. But kind of like how it is with your ending, in a sense, where you're just like, I need it to like lead into this and end like this in a satisfying way. So you would probably end up going back and being like, actually, we're going to start like this and do that.
Yeah, I remember making a comment on TikTok that first draft me isn't the real me. I think that feels very true. I the Fate's Tether changed so much from the first draft that I can't believe I ever sent that to anybody. I sent, okay, before it even saw a dev editor, and people were telling me that's what beta readers are for. And my beta readers were assuring me, I'm going to give you feedback. It's okay. Like, it doesn't have to be. And I was like, there's going to be typos. They're like, don't worry about it. I can't believe I sent it to them. I can't believe that anybody other than RSK saw the first draft for the first time because it was such a mess. It was like when you move into a new house, instead of taking things out box by box, it's like you just dumped every box just right on the floor in the middle of the living room. And then you were like, great, now we can put everything away because we know everything's here. And then you realize that things got broken in the move and things got broken when you just dumped everything on the floor. And now you have this huge mess to deal with. And then there's me in the background like, what do you think? It's good,
This
right?
is so
That's the
good.
first draft.
Oh my gosh, that's a good analogy though, because I've heard like the sandcastle sandboxes one, but moving in and just having your boxes and just like, because your boxes could be like your ideas and you just dump it and everything and things get broken because you're writing or representing a wrong way or
You're putting things you shouldn't
whatever.
be putting together because you're just dumping
Yes,
everything.
yes, that's a pretty good analogy.
Thanks.
I agree with you 100%. Awesome.
I
Um,
analogize sometimes.
um, let's see. What are our goals? I mean, this could go between the two of us just to end our podcast because it's about time to wrap up. But, until next time, Jade, what are your goals um in the writing or personal life, wherever you want it to be?
I want to finish book two. That's my biggest goal right now. I don't know if that's going to be done by the next time we have a podcast, but hopefully I'll
Eh,
be able to say that I put some good work on it. Obviously, I want to ship out all of my books this week, and hopefully people will
awesome.
start getting their Kickstarter books.
Awesome.
And maybe plot book three because there's a lot
Oh,
just sitting up in my head that I probably should put down on paper. But yeah, what
get
about
those
you?
boxes in, dump them out. Yeah. I'm reading your book too. Um, let's see, submitting my book, The Maiden's Husband, for pre-orders, which is next week. Paperback pre-orders on Amazon. OMG. And then I've realized, because you're reading book two and um once book one, The Maiden's Husband, comes out, I'll probably be looking for beta readers, like more beta readers for book two,
Hmm.
but not so many as I did for book one. And also, I've realized I should probably get some more words out on book four because that thing is a hefty beast. And what's happened lately is that if I'm editing one, then one's kind of just sitting, or maybe it needs some editing, and then I'm drafting like the second one after that. Like, however my weird author brain works, I'm a little behind. But book four is like 60 chapters. So just gotta put some good words and good work into that as well.
What do you think your word count's going to be for the last one?
Oh my god, too much. Um, God, there's so much to go over, and I don't know. It is open over here. Maybe I can just read off what it is so far. Because I did open it up to start that good work, but that didn't happen. It is currently 66,000 words, and I think I've got, what chapter am I on? 21. 21. So, yeah, I don't know. it's gonna be hefty.
150,000 words.
Maybe. I'm
You
like,
know what?
oh, it's probably. Go ahead.
I don't know that this looks like 136,000 words. People keep telling me like when they read it, they're like, "It was a long book." And I was like, I know it seems that way,
It
but I
doesn't look
promise
like it.
but it doesn't look that way. Um,
Yeah.
oh,
Well,
this
it's
one
all
has the
based
wrong
on
page numbers, but
formatting. Oh well, that's just a little proof. It all depends on like the formatting, because I've got like children's chapter books that are like thick, but it's only because the font and everything, like the spacing and everything is so wide and big for like children's eyes. And then you've got like Priory of the Orange Tree over there, where that's like thick, but I guess I haven't really looked at the formatting in that to justify everything, but we have noticed or was it is that The Haunting of Adeline? That's like 600 pages, but it's like only a little bit bigger than our books, like by a
is
smidgen, but
it?
like it's is it? We just thought
You know
because
what?
I was yeah.
I read it on Kindle.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that does because like we looked at it, we were like, well, if for 600 pages, that should be thicker, but the paper is like much thinner, and I didn't take a close look at the words and spacing. They're probably a little bit shoved in there, but certainly the paper is not as thick, so that does help. But
My
yeah,
margins are definitely I was gonna fit as many words on that page as possible. I don't know if the people listening know that when the more pages you add, the more your book costs to print. Um, and as much as you
yes,
think it won't matter that much, you're like, oh yeah, but it'd be like 10 more pages. What is it? Like it can make a difference. It can make a huge difference adding like 10 pages. And I found this out when I was formatting and nothing was coming out properly and my margins were all messed up.
oh no,
And
yes,
I changed my word count. I think at one point it was 501 pages, and then I had to fix it, and then it was 400 and something pages, and then that was still wrong. And I think the final count was like 446 pages. So I was gonna fit as many words on these pages as possible, brother. I was not gonna pay a ton of money to print this book. I mean, I'm already
yeah.
paying more than I think the average person is, just because I think what how many pages is the average book? Isn't it like 300 and something?
Let's Google it.
Google it.
Average book page
Length.
count. Well, I know like yeah, 200 to 350, which is like 60 to 90,000 words, which is about, what I've heard what like even traditional publishers kind of look for or ask for when you're pitching to agents and stuff.
Yeah, I know that it's like pretty impossible to get a very lengthy book to get traditionally published, especially for a debut author. But that's part of what I love indie publishing so much because I get to say, "But I want my book to be this long." And
Yeah.
I've definitely had those moments where I've looked at my book and I know what I could cut out. Like if I was like, okay, I need to cut some stuff out. I'm going to make this a shorter book. There are definitely scenes that could go, but then in my opinion, it wouldn't be the same story that I was trying to tell because I think a lot of like the moments, even when there isn't a bunch of action that Cosima's going through, I think there's more insight to her or the world that I've built. And for some people, they were like, hey, your book was really long. But I've actually had a lot of readers who were like, oh my God, I didn't want it to end. Like, I can't believe it's already over. Like, I flew through the whole thing, didn't even notice that it was so long. Like, and I was so immersed in the world and I didn't want to like come back out. And I have people who are like, oh, it's like the best compliment ever. I have people who message me who are like, I still think about your book, or I was thinking about your book today, or
Yes.
I think about your book every day. And I'm like, what? My book?
Yes.
So it's just like,
Yes.
would it have been better if it was shorter to some people, maybe, but to others, it would have been less of a story. And in my opinion, it would have been less of a story. And if you read my book and you're like, man, this is too long, don't tell me. Read less of it. Skip some pages. I don't know. Skip
Yeah.
over it a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
It's
judge
okay
you,
to
man.
skim.
If
Yeah.
you're
There's no
like,
reading police.
unless you come to me and you're like, I have no idea what this happened. There's a huge plot hole, and I'm like, no, that's in there. You just
You
didn't read
skimmed.
that part. Yeah. Because you imagine like someone's like, it's too long. Just skip a couple. Look, now it's not too long. There we go.
Oh, oh,
What does it matter? Now it's not too long.
oh, no, it's amazing. You could just skip over things, kind of like content warnings. but we won't get into that too
Oh my
deeply.
God. Don't start. Don't get me
Don't
started today on
start me.
content.
Um, yes. Oh no. Page links. Yeah. No. Because there are some people that again, yeah, like as you said, they're like, it wasn't long enough. I needed more of your world, and
That's how
that's
I
how I
felt
feel
about your
about.
book.
Yeah, it is only 90K. It used to be. I'm a very like what is it? Not like an overwriter, but an underwriter, where I just write straight up dialogue and maybe an action and maybe a little bit of setting the scene. And that's all you get. That's my first draft. And then the rest of the drafts are like going in and thickening it up. So yeah, that's just the way I write. Um yeah. So but I am worried about book 4 being so hefty and so huge. Um, it's and even book 2 that you're reading is a little bit longer than book 1. Um, so yeah, it is all kind of like subjective with readers. So it's you're not going to please everybody, which is
Yeah.
the whole point of publishing.
Yeah, especially indie publishing. I'm worried that I'm slightly worried that book two is going to end up longer than book one, but my goal is to keep it the same. So in my Scrivener, the word count goal is 135,000, which I think is crazy. Can we talk like for a second how like crazy that is that like if I was trad publishing, I would not ever set a goal that high. I would not even like I'd be like maybe 100,000, but even then I'm gonna have to make some cuts.
Like
I feel like,
scary. Yeah.
but that's why I love indie publishing, man. I can do things like that. But I am a over writer. I am often taking things out, or I'll find that I've met my word count that I set for a particular like chapter. Like let's say I'm like, okay, I want 2,500 words for this chapter. I'm not going over that. Like it doesn't need to be a very long chapter. Keep it simple. And then I've reached 2,500 words. I'm like, I'm halfway through the chapter. What the? Why did I even tell myself this? But so I have to go back then and start taking a lot of things
Things
out.
out. I know. I'm kind of scared. This one chapter that I was writing, what is like already at 3,000 words, and I'm like, but we haven't even got to the good stuff yet. So there is like, but that's what editing's for. Um, Later on, is you just gotta dump those boxes out, and then we can pick them up later. So
You know what else it reminds me of? You know what it feels like when you have book one and like you have your first draft and then you work on it really hard and you do like all the rewrites and then you have whatever draft that is now that you have your rewrites but you haven't done like the copy editing. Sometimes to me that feels like when you mix M&Ms and Skittles like into the same bowl and you like can't tell the difference between them. That's what reading that draft feels like because now you've
yes.
rewritten a lot of it but you're still going to find moments where you're like what is this? Like why did I write it like this? I had one where I rewrote the paragraph right underneath it. Rewrote it completely and it sounded so much better. I left both of them in there for several drafts. It took several drafts for someone to be like, "Hey, this is like
This is
completely repeated just like, in a different way. Did you mean to do this?" And I was like, "Oh my god. How is no one noticed?" Maybe they just thought I was like extra driving that point home, but it was literally like the same sentence, just like said a different way and like put in a different way. So it's like
I
the
repeat
same
things for
thing.
emphasis.
I was just,
Emphasis.
they're like, wow, she's really passionate about this. She just really cares.
Amazing. Yep, that again. That's what editing and beta readers and all the people are for that go into the books, and that's just incredible the amount of people that it takes to make like this one thing. Because even in because even in traditional publishing, like they have all the people and all the things in all the world and all the editors, all the marketing, all like, and then we just gotta do it all by ourselves with a few other people, of course.
You know what? I was really lucky to have met so many really amazing people when I lost all the funding for my book. To anybody who doesn't know, when I was first writing the book and I had finished Nano, I had been saving up money and we made plans for the money basically on like how we were going to get my book published. So like how much does it cost for editing and like this. So basically it wasn't just like the money was sitting in my bank account and then it wasn't anymore, and I was like, oh well, that kind of sucks because I was going to pay for it. Like it was like meticulously plotted what exactly I was going to do with the money and where it was going to go. And then the next, all of a sudden our car just like died, and it was like, take it to the mechanic, and they're like, oh, how much do you have for your book? Actually, we're going to take all of that and we're still going to need more. And so it was so heartbreaking. And I remember coming on TikTok and being like, I'm sorry, guys, I'm not going to be able to publish. And I had like tears in my eyes, and I felt so bad because people were excited for it. People were wanting to read it. And how, like, when you're an indie author, to have anybody interested in reading your book means everything immediately. You're like, holy crap, you really want to read it? Like, I'll work on it. I'll get it ready for you and you can read it. But when I had to tell people, like, it's kind of dead in the water right now because I can't afford editing. It's written, but I can't afford editing. I can't afford this and that. And I was lucky enough to win a giveaway by RSK for that 50,000 word developmental edit. So I got a good chunk of it developmentally edited, even though I didn't get the whole thing. And then Mackenzie Marshall was my editor, and she did the whole thing for free. And originally, she was one of the people that I had talked to about editing, so we had discussed like how much I was going to pay her, like everything. We had everything arranged, and then the money was gone. So that was like another thing that was really hard, was because I was like, I'm so sorry, Mackenzie, like we talked about payment and everything, like we were basically ready to go, and then the money just wasn't there. And out of the kindness of her heart, she was like, let me please still do it for you. And then obviously now with book 2, her and I have once again discussed payment, because I am not going to just be like, do the second one for free. Obviously, I'm just completely over, like head over heels, completely so grateful and just like eternally thankful to her for doing that. And then that wasn't where the kindness stopped, because my book cover artist, Jennifer Hoffman, who is a very well established, in my opinion, well established indie author who's doing amazing for herself and has like incredible marketing and has so many fans and has so many books, and like so many people are involved in her Stuff Your Kindle days and things like that. And it's like, wow. And she did my cover for free. And then again, once again, I have contacted her about doing the rest of the series, and we have discussed payment because I am just thankful that she would do it in the first place for me for free. But it's like, I think that's another thing that's beautiful about indie publishing, is that you can create a community that wants to be there for you and that wants to see your book come to life. And then I ran a Kickstarter, and I had so many people like that were friends of mine or that are authors that were, pitching in to help me make this book come to life. And now we're sitting here just because of like all these people took a chance on me without even really knowing me or knowing my book, but we just formed like this community together. And I think that is what's like the indie author spirit, is like when we can't do it alone, we'll like reach a hand out and we'll be like, come on, like I've got you, we'll do it together. And I think that's what you and I have done, especially as like friends with our book releases being so close together. We're kind of like, come on, I'll pull you up. And then like when I start falling, you pull me up, and we
Yeah,
make it up to that mountain together. So I love
exactly.
indie publishing so much.
Absolutely. And like and whatever, one of us lacks in something, the other one is like already figured it out, or you've already started a process here, and I'm like, how the hell did you do that? And you're like, oh, you just blah, blah, blah. And then it's, it's so much better than going through it alone, because you freaking don't know, like it's such a vague and like there's no right or wrong way of doing it kind of world too, that you do need some guidance and some, helping hands, and the little floaties in this ocean of, the book industry. Yeah, and I mean, I've even met some writers who are like, it's a competition. They have that very competitive, more capitalistic view on the book industry. And I feel like even like some people setting up trad and self-publishing against each other, but it's like, no, we're all writers, no matter what our path is. And we do, for the most part, have just this incredible, like, supportive community. And it is really important to network and build your little circle in, again, the ocean of the book industry.
Yeah, I think that would be my main suggestion to anybody who's like, well, how do I indie publish? The first thing I recommend you do, find a community. It doesn't matter where you do it.
Mm,
You can find it through Threads or Instagram or Discord or TikTok or like whatever platform you connect with best and you can find other people through, do it. Because I
absolutely.
don't think I would have even had a book ready to publish if I didn't have my book community. And I think that that's another thing. I remember when I first wrote Fate's Tether, and it was like during Nano, I was asking myself, am I going to trad publish or am I going to indie publish? And then one day to the next, it feels like I completely forgot all about trad publishing because I loved the indie community so much. And you're going to find other authors who do want to trad publish, but they are still in that like indie zone with you because they haven't yet, had a manuscript request, or they don't have an agent, or, they're still querying, or maybe they're not even ready to query yet. Those, you can still like make really good writer friends. Like, we're
Mhm.
not different. We are all writers, like you said. And so I just don't, sometimes it feels like you can find trad authors who don't view indie publishing very highly. But I would also say, like, for the most part, other writers are just going to be happy to be in a community with you as long as you are nice and you are willing to help. Because I think that's the other thing about indie publishing. If you are like on the fence and you're like, do I indie publish? Do I trad publish? I think part of it is asking yourself, like, how willing are you to be a pillar of like your community when it comes to writing? Like, how willing are you to have another indies back? Because like, if you're the kind of person who, if someone's like, well, who did your cover art, and you're like, I'm not going to tell you because like I don't want them to
Yeah.
like also go to the same cover artist. Or if you're like, oh, would you be interested in critique swapping, and it's not saying no because you're busy or you have other things, but saying no because you're like, I don't want to read your stuff, like I just want to focus on my book, then maybe indie publishing is like potentially not for you, because a lot of it is having each other's back. And that doesn't mean like putting yourself out there for everything and helping everyone with everything. It's just like, if your friend comes to you and they're like, do you know how to do this? You're not going to be like, no, you go figure it out yourself. I Google it, you go Google it. Like that is such a negative attitude. And I've seen it rarely. I have seen it. And those people usually don't do as well because they cut themselves off of like the support of other indie authors who will go to bat for you every time. I know indie authors who they support each other's stuff like crazy. They're constantly posting another indie author stuff. They're constantly promoting it. They're running like giveaways for another author's book. They're buying it. They're reviewing it. Like, you don't want to close the door to other indie authors just because you think it should be all about you and your process. And I think that I would encourage people to see how beautiful it is to interact with community, you know?
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. Yes. And you should, I think it was what you said, that you should always start with finding wherever you're most comfortable on a platform, and finding, just like even a little chat room, because I feel like that's how I kind of started. Um, I found Jenna Moresi on YouTube, and she was just, giving writing tips, and eventually she's like, so she had like little videos, you can self-publish or you can traditionally publish. I was like, I didn't even know how any of that worked because I was probably just like right out of high school. And like, I write a lot, but I'm like, oh, you can edit the crap that you write. Oh, you can publish the stuff that you write and just put it on Amazon. That's incredible. I didn't, thank God. But it was trash. But like just having her, I'm like so grateful for what she does. You should totally check out Jenna Moresi on YouTube. But just so grateful for the resources that she, provides. And I feel like that's what a lot of the indie community is just, not explaining, but giving out the resources that they've used. And yeah, not gaslighting, gatekeeping, because that's not exactly girl
Yeah,
bossing.
gatekeeping. That's the word I was looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
Gatekeeping just does not go well. And with the first suggestion being to like build yourself a community, it's because you're going to need resources. Like, as an indie author, there are going to be times where you're going to be like, wait, I don't know what to do. So that's why
Mhm.
I think it's important to remain open to helping others where you can. And of course, don't stretch yourself thin. You are your own person. You can't read every other indie author's book, even if we want
Yes.
to. But if someone comes to you and they say, what made you choose indie publishing? I think that would be a great moment to share like with another person and build that community. Or if someone is like, how do you even start an Ingram Spark account? You can give them the basics. You can be like, I've had friends too who send me the link to something, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Let me read this, and then I'll know what to
Yeah.
do. But still, it's having other people to also commiserate with. Because what happens if you run into problems and you've Google searched it to death and you can't find the answer? There's a really high chance that you throw a rock within the indie community, you will find someone who knows what they're doing and knows how to fix that exact problem, because we've all been there troubleshooting it ourselves. And you never know, you could potentially be a really great resource to other indies. And I think that that is something to shoot to achieve, is to be somebody that other indies like can relate to. Because I know you know about Indie Author Connect, right? And that's run by Atlas Creed.
Oh, I did not.
Oh my gosh, I will have to add
Oh
you to.
yeah,
So
here we are.
there's a whole like, it has a website and everything. It's called Indie Author Connect, and it's run by Atlas Creed, and he is, I think, a perfect example of someone who wants to be a pillar in the community that he's in. He wants to be somebody that you can go to, and he has like made so many connections between ARC readers, beta readers, sensitivity readers, editors, book cover artists, character artists. I think he even addresses like taxes. I think there's somebody in there who can help you like figure out taxes when it comes to writing your book. There's suggestions for marketing. There's suggestions for book events. There's like, so this is one person who is like, I have all of these resources because I had to learn how to do it on my own. How can I share
Yeah.
them? And I think that that's beautiful, because what if you're like a brand new indie author and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing? And to know that you've ended up in a space where people are willing to accommodate you being new and willing to like, give you a hand up if you need it. If you're like slipping, you're going to fall, someone can catch you. You know what I mean? And
Right.
it has been an invaluable experience to me to really connect with other authors the entire time that I've been writing. And so yeah, eventually at one point I was like, what even is trad publishing? Because I just love like how resourceful the indie community is. Because when you trad publish, you have to worry about like a different set of parameters, because you're worried about finding an agent that is going to be interested in your book, because you don't want to just find an agent who's never supported anything like what you've written. And so you have to find someone that works for you, and you have to query, and then you have to make sure that your query letter is good. So you have like this whole list of like things that are in a slightly different direction, because while you may find alpha and beta readers as a traditional author or an indie author, you won't also be finding your cover artist. You won't also typically be finding your copy and line editor. You won't also be setting up Ingram Spark accounts and Goodreads author accounts and like all the little things that go into indie publishing. And I think that that is like what's crazy, because like we're so resourceful.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, 100% with everything. And I was gonna say, and I mean, I didn't want to interrupt, but isn't that what we're doing with this podcast as well?
Yeah.
Providing the resources and spreading the good word about indie publishing. But yeah, that those are incredible resources, and like how good it is to like give away, but to give those to others who, again, because it's just like, what, how do you even do that? You just put it on Amazon? Well, no. I mean, you could technically, but there's all this other stuff because it is like such a process.
Oh, it's a process from start to finish, but I think it can be a very rewarding process. Um,
Oh, for sure.
if you get to the point where you make it through all of the obstacles and the ups and downs and the how do I do this and the error messages and the delays
Yeah.
and all the things that come with indie publishing, I still think, yeah, it can be very rewarding. And I love that what we're trying to do with this podcast too is try to help like indie authors, because I mean, at one point that was us. We
Yeah.
were just like, how do I do what? What even is what's KDP? What does that mean?
And you also need, at least one other person who's an indie author, just to for one other person to understand the crazy that you're going through. Because, everyone else, you can complain about Ingram Spark or KDP or like, formatting, whatever, writing character arcs, world building, all the things. But, only a select few are going to even know what you're talking about, one, and understand and also be going through that kind of crazy. So you do need, um, somebody to confide in as well.
Yeah, you definitely have to commiserate a little bit, because otherwise it gets too dark and scary. You need
Yes.
someone to pull you out of the dark and scary. You also need someone who's not going to be like, "So, why haven't you just made thousands of dollars yet?"
Yes.
What do you mean it's not just automatically in stores? And you're like, "Well, no, you have to try to get your book in the stores." And they're like, "Just do it. Just put it
Well,
in there." Just have you tried just walking up to the guy at the counter and being like, "Here are my books, put them on the shelf"?
Yes.
I actually, yeah,
Please.
I have actually tried. It didn't work.
Legit. It was wonderful talking to you about your book, Jade, and your incredible, amazing Fate's Tether, which comes out today, August 21st. Fate's Tether. I'm so excited to have my own copy and everything.
Well, you'll have it soon. I'm shipping them out, I promise. The second that they get here cuz I already have everything ready to go. I just need the freaking books. But anyway, thank you so much for interviewing me today. And I thank you to anybody who listened this far. If you did, that's absolutely insane. And I hope you know that you're a bonkers crazy person for listening to our very first episode all the way through. And hopefully, you guys join us again for the Indie Book Nerds podcast.
Yes. Jade, maybe you can also tell them where they can find you and your book.
Okay, where can you find Faith's Tether? You can find it on Barnes& and Noble online. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Etsy under author Jade Nioma. You can find it on my website, which I don't remember as I'm saying all of these things, and I'm not going to look it up, but you could probably find it. And then I'm also on TikTok and Instagram and Pinterest at author Jade Nioma. I was going to say underscore, but there's no underscore anymore.
The Maiden's Husband is available for Kindle pre-order on Amazon. Paperback pre-order should be ready by August 23rd. And then you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Threads. I have my website. It's all on my link tree on any of those platforms in the bio, at Morgan Christensen underscore author, or on TikTok it's Morgan underscore Christensen underscore author. So awesome.